more notes. You will notice I have taken my page that I had folded up in order to give you your assignment yesterday. I've unfolded it. You will need to fill in information about these people. One way that nations interact, let me go back here so that it actually shows you the words. One way that nations interact is individual citizens volunteer to help nations in need. One of those individual citizens that came to Valley Forge had a whole bunch of names before his last name. In American history, he's most known by his last name, which was Lafayette. He was a French noble. He was 21 years old. He volunteered to serve in the Continental Army, and he became a good friend of George Washington. He is only 21 years old when he comes over, but he was very impressed with the idea of American freedom. He liked the Declaration of Independence, so much so that when he came over, he had been married. His wife was pregnant. She was only 16 years old, but that's how it was done back then. But he left his 16-year-old pregnant wife back in France because he was so impressed with the ideals and ideas of the American Revolution that he came and volunteered to serve. He was not mentioned in the video you watched yesterday. The other fellow was mentioned in yesterday's video. His name was Baron, and then there were a whole bunch of other names with that, but von Steuben. Sometimes this is pronounced Baron von Steuben. He was an officer from Prussia. Remember, Germany, what is now Germany, was not all together in one big nation in the 1770s. And so part of what is now Germany was the place, the little principality where the Hessians came from. Their leader, their prince, allied them, hired them out to the British Army. Now we have Baron von Steuben, who's from a different part of what is now Germany. Back then, it's the part that was called Prussia. He came over to work in the United States Army. He taught us to maneuver. That would be to move around as an army. Baron von Steuben looked like this. He was definitely a lot older than Lafayette. The video yesterday mentioned how successful he was at teaching us to maneuver. You can go and visit Valley Forge nowadays. I mentioned that yesterday. And one of the places that you can see is this large field where the whole Continental Army would gather to practice those maneuvers. Having these notes now, you need your assignment for today. You should have another one of these large note cards. And this is going to become a written primary source as if you were at Valley Forge. What you did yesterday is preparation for today because you will copy these over into your assignment. So here is the assignment. Let me put it right here. So you need to, on your note card, you need to write a letter as if you were at Valley Forge. Today you're only writing the beginning. Why? Well, because there are a few little historical details that I like to share with you that are kind of funny. But today we're starting with the main part of Valley Forge, the part that is more well known in history about this winter encampment. So you have to write as if you are camped out in Valley Forge for the winter. You need to turn letter A, this section, into one paragraph. you have the beginning of it. You could say, I am with the Continental Army. We are camping in the country to be near the British in Philadelphia. There is much suffering. We had to build our own huts. Those huts were so windy that a lot of our suffering came from the fact that many of us didn't have shoes or clothes to keep us warm. Then you need your metaphor. Without shoes, my feet were. And then you talk about the fact that there was very little food for us to eat. Then you use your simile. With so little food, I was as hungry as. And you end with the fact that it's no surprise many of us got sick. That's your first paragraph using your 3 sensory details. Your first paragraph will be longer than your second paragraph. In your second paragraph, you need to start on a new line. You'll need to indent. For the second paragraph, you need to choose one of these 2 people, and you need to make it sound like you met this person or you saw them. You could describe them. You could say, yesterday on the way to breakfast, I saw Lafayette. I could tell he was only 21 years old because he looked so young. Or he was walking along with George Washington. They acted like they were good friends. The last thing that you need to do is you need to use some dialogue. So you will need to have someone talking, just one person. You would need to use exactly what they say. You could do something like, General Washington said to Lafayette, comma, quotation marks, you are a good friend, period, quotation marks. If you're talking about Baron von Steuben, you could say, General Washington said to Baron von Steuben, comma, quotation marks, you are doing a good job teaching the army to move around. That would be the end of your paragraph. You don't need anything fancier than that. So we need to know who it is that we're talking about, something about them, and dialogue. Remember, dialogue starts with we need to know who's talking, comma, quotation marks, capitalize what they said, period, quotation marks. That works as dialogue. No, you don't need to copy this down. I'm just showing you a reminder of what you need to do for the dialogue as far as capitalization, punctuation, and a good way to set it up. This is your assignment for today. I look forward to seeing that photograph.